I will expose the corruption in Sacramento and hold these crooks accountable. I'm a businessman, a farmer, and an unapologetic fighter for California, and that's why I'm dangerous.
Here we are. We're live on day 2 on the new platform.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to America Matters. You certainly know what that theme song means. It's right. It's time for another episode of America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky. Joining me today is Joshua Matriciana, filling in for Eddie Floyd. We got Shannon Lawson there in the studio, making it happen for us. And it is Wednesday, March 26th. Welcome. And before we jump into it, I want to give a big shout out, hello, and welcome to everybody out there on 93.7 KPGF as well as AM 1060, and all the folks listening and all the folks that make it happen for us at the Answer Network, the Salem Network, Radio for America, the Kevin Jackson Network, and of course those watching on AUN Television or any one of our many, many streaming platforms, including Rumble and YouTube and Twitch and wherever else they can get them. Josh, you know all the things. Josh has been helping me get this put out there on more networks, more availability, which means more ease of access to get the truth out there. It's exactly what we do here on America Matters. Is we talk about the truth, what's really going on, and the things, well, maybe the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. Can't imagine why, because it breaks the narrative. So, Josh, I know you had some things in mind for today, and where would you like to start, my friend? I can't hear Josh. Well, uh-oh. He can hear that we can't hear him. Now he can't hear either. Oh, no. Well, look, Josh is living in an area that was affected by the fire, and he's lost a lot of critical infrastructure there. Not his fault, but this is failures of more great governance coming out of California and the woke Democrat leadership that is keeping the state crippled at every possible turn. So, unfortunately, things like this do become an issue. He'll cut out at times. It's always when he's making a really good point, or like right now where he has something important to probably say, and well, it just kind of cuts out. So that's what happens when you have poor leadership that focuses on DEI policies and taking care of illegal immigrants more than they do taking care of their own people and their own infrastructure. And speaking of infrastructure, those failures are what led to, well, at least one of the fires that in California, in Los Angeles, with the Eaton fire that wiped out pretty much most of Altadena. So it's really a shame that is what seems to be the commonplace here with California, and so it's really a shame that is what seems to be the commonplace here. I'm hearing myself with California, and so it's really a shame that is what seems to be the commonplace here. I'm hearing myself with California, and so it's really myself. All right. Anyways, yeah. Sorry, we are moving on to a new platform here, EV Mux, which helps us push this out. We were using StreamYard for the longest time, and so now we're using EV Mux, and I guess we're having some technical difficulties getting through this learning process here, but c'est la vie, right? It is what it is. And yeah, I still can't hear Josh. I don't know what has happened. So, anyways, yeah. Well, we're working on it. So, anyways, I don't know. Where should we begin? There's a lot to talk about, right? Didn't Donald Trump pass? He signed that bill about the election integrity stuff, right? That was something that he did. Josh is nodding his head yes. I'm sorry you guys can't on the radio can't hear him. So.
Well, let me know if you can hear me.
There he is. He's back.
There we go. So it was, again, the internet. It stopped working. Now it works. It's so weird. But
Josh
you can hear me now. Okay,
yes, we can.
First of all, let's give a plug out to ZackyRadio.com. That's where you can see all of this stuff streaming on Rumble, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram. You'll see links for all of that. Why don't we start with the first video? Because what I think we need to kind of reset the narrative here. what the heck is democracy? I mean, we start with the basics. What's the difference between a democracy and a republic? And this video is from the 1950s, and it gives a pretty good and concise definition. I mean, I love this video. I think every American should hear it.
I think I know what video this is.
Yeah.
I know. All right, go on, play it.
Democracy is a form of government based upon the principle of majority rule. Period. End of discussion. Now, that's not very complicated. Majority rule. It's easy to understand, easy to sell to the masses, and, I might add, deadly. For example, what would you call a lynch mob? That's majority rule. There's only one dissenting vote, and he's at the end of the rope. Now, that's pure democracy in action. But wait a minute, you say. The majority should rule, yes, but not to the extent of destroying the rights of the minority. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are no longer describing a democracy. We are speaking of a republic. A republic is a limited democracy. It's a form of government based upon the principle of limited majority rule. Limited so that the minority, even a minority of one, can be protected against the whims and passions of the majority. And how do you protect the minority from the majority? You write down a set of rules on a piece of paper. You say, this we can do, that we cannot. At the top of the paper, you write the word Constitution. And then everyone agrees to follow the rules no matter what the temptation. And when you're finished, you've created a constitutional republic. Democracy.
I knew it. That's exactly the clip. I forget the guy's name, but he is so brilliant. Josh, you remember his name?
No, it evades me. I should have written it down, but
Yeah, I know. This guy he's got a lot of great stuff that he did way back in the day. And I think that's from like the 50s or 60s. But yes, a constitutional republic is what we're supposed to be. And my, how far we have fallen from that. The erosion of our rights.
We think about this, right? Most people on the left, they're like democracy, and we're taught that democracy is good, but we're not taught that there's a difference between pure democracy, really dangerous, versus a constitutional republic, which is what our founders decided and strive to as the best form of, well, let's say the least worst out of all forms of government.
We're still perfecting the right form of government.
Yeah, and I don't know if we ever will be. As Christians, they say that the best form of government is when God rules with an iron fist or with a rod of iron. So the Christians think that, and also the Muslims think that as well. And most of these big religions think that the best form of government is when the divine being just rules, and everything is according to that divine being. But we don't have that. We've got people who we represent, who we elect, who represent us, and then if they do a bad job, we get rid of them.
Yep, that's the idea. That's the idea. And I want to talk more on this when we get back from our first break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Josh Matriciana and Shannon Lawson. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana joining me today, filling in for Eddie Floyd. And we've got Shannon Lawson there in the studio. And, well, we just played a clip talking about the differences between democracy and a constitutional republic, which is what our country is supposed to be. And Josh was just weighing in on some key differences and also explaining, you know, who thinks what is the better form of government.
Well, and I think that really it's the least worst form of government. We're always trying to perfect it, and there is no system that is going to run perfectly with humans in charge of it. But we're doing our best, and that's why we elect the ones we think are going to represent us the best, and we kick them out when they're not doing their job, which is why I think Trump is doing the most important thing, which is getting rid of the unelected bureaucracy and bringing in the elected, representatives for our democracy. And that's important because we've drifted away from that.
Yeah.
And now nobody's accountable. They're just been in here and they sign their own checks and they raise their own rates, raise their own salaries, and
Yeah. That's Congress for you.
Which we need to talk about one of these days. But one of the things that I know, I mentioned this yesterday, but most men, I think they think of the fall of Rome at least once a week, and there's some really interesting Greek Empire that really kind of brought in this idea of democracy. But we've got a video clip here, number 2.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess it's alluding to something to do with the fall of Greece and Rome. So let's play that clip.
We're used to thinking very highly of democracy, and by extension, of ancient Athens, the civilization that gave rise to it. It's therefore very striking to discover that one of ancient Greece's greatest achievements, philosophy, was highly suspicious of its other achievement, democracy. Socrates' point is that voting in an election is a skill, not a random intuition. And like any skill, it needs to be taught systematically to people. We have given the vote to all without connecting it to wisdom. Socrates knew where that would lead, to a system the Greeks feared above all, demagoguery. Socrates knew how easily people seeking election could exploit our desire for easy answers. He asked us to imagine an election debate between two candidates, one who was like a doctor and the other who was like a sweet shop owner. The sweet shop owner would say of his rival, "Look, this person here has worked many evils on you. He hurts you, gives you bitter potions, and tells you not to eat and drink whatever you like." Socrates asked us to consider the audience's response. Do you think the doctor would be able to reply effectively? The true answer, "I cause you trouble and go against your desires in order to help you," would cause an uproar among the voters, don't you think? We have preferred to think of democracy as an unambiguous good, rather than as something that is only ever as effective as the education system that surrounds it. As a result, we have elected many sweet shop owners and very few doctors. We're used to thinking...
It's an interesting concept there.
Yeah. Basically what it's saying is that you need to get a democracy, well, a republic that works, a form of government that works, you have to be informed. You have to know the right things. You can't just be ruled by the whim of the masses. So his idea of a sweet shop owner versus a doctor, well, yeah, we always want to go to the sweet shop owner because it tastes good. But the doctor, even though it might hurt, is actually, the one that's bringing the healing into that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, and that's kind of what it is right now with Donald Trump. I mean, even though people do want Donald Trump because, well, he's bringing us he's at least doing his best to fix this country, as opposed to the worked up, BLM liberal masses, that were all driving their Teslas so happy just a few months ago, that are now lighting them on fire because they've been indoctrinated to think that, all these horrible things are going to happen because of Donald Trump, because of the good things that he's trying to do to help the country. He's going to lower taxes. He's going to stop funding NATO, and he's going to stop funding the war in the Ukraine. These are all bad things that they think is really the case, but the reality is it's actually going to help we, the people of America, first. And that's the whole point, is that it's putting the people of America first.
Right. Yeah, we and that I had a discussion with a Spanish friend of mine who lives in the UK this morning, and he used to be leftist, and now he's kind of moved a little bit more right. He's probably one of the more right leaning of the Brits that I know, and we got in this whole argument about like America first. The reason the rest of the world hates Trump and they call him an idiot and they call him stupid. Well, from a British perspective or from the globalist perspective, yeah, he's doing all the dumb things because he's not advancing the globalist agenda. He's America first for the American people at the expense of the Europeans, the Asians, all the other countries. So that's why Americans, I think, why he's so popular in the United States and countries like Australia, who, they want to be in America, but he's so popular here is because he's putting Americans first, and that's what the rest of the world, I think, really they want their countries to do, and a lot of countries are, kind of jumping on the bandwagon, like Australia.
Well, yeah, it's more in Australia. I mean, there's so many countries out there that feel that way, but it's people who have the conservative mindset that want to take care of their respective home countries as well. They like that concept that it's helping, they're putting them and their people first, and they wish that their leaders would do that. But people like Keir Starmer in the UK are definitely not doing that. They're promoting, helping folks that are there illegally, and it's only putting strain on the people that are actually English, the real folks that are English, and not all these illegal migrants that are there getting all these benefits at their tax-paying expense. Just like here in California, we have Gavin Newsom, who is spending billions of our dollars, Josh, yours and mine, and everybody out there in California's dollars, on helping illegal immigrants get housing and get education and getting health care. All the while, we're paying $6 at the pump, and eggs are $14, and our roads are broken. We have the most homeless in the nation. In fact, we have a quarter of the nation's homeless population here, but they're not getting help. They're just doing drugs on the street, screaming at the sky and everything around them. And our crime is through the roof. Our education's in the toilet, but that's because we the people aren't being put first by our leaders, and that takes us back to why we need to replace the terrible leaders that we have that are going to actually represent us, and that brings us back to why we need to be informed about what's going on, because there's so many people that walk around on a daily basis totally clueless and operate on feelings and emotion, and that's why they go for the sweets vendor as opposed to the herbalist doctor.
You're hitting on a lot of points, and I'm going to reinforce each one of those with a video, because first of all, you're right on the money with that. All right, so what we need to bring this up, we need to first of all replace our terrible government, which Trump is doing, and it's a painful situation. But how did we get here? Now let's talk about the Department of Education, or as I like to think of it, the Department of Propaganda and Miseducation. So this was only basically created in the 70s, and Reagan, who he had some very interesting things to say about it. So why don't we listen to what Reagan has to say about the Department of Education?
We got the clip.
Okay, so number three. Let's go for number 3. Oh, wait. Number 3.
Briefly, the signal chat issue that I know many of you are concerned about.
Nope, that's not it. Okay. Well, you know what? We'll skip on to this one, because Reagan, I'll summarize it here. He basically talks about the Department of Education, and he says, what happened here was that Jimmy Carter started this thing, and it's the other we got this from David Harris. So here I'm gonna stream it from mine here in just a second. But we can move on to the next one. So let's do number 4 then, and we'll go back to number 3 in a second. All right, let's play it.
Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments, I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all. Should I do this? Yeah. Okay. Today we take.
And it's done.
Yeah, he did it. He did it. And but this isn't a new thing. He wasn't the very first president to talk about dismantling the Department of Uneducation.
Yes, the
Because
Department of Indoctrination.
he wasn't the first one. And in a few seconds here, when we get what Reagan had to say about it, you'll see that this is something that has been long coming. And the fact that all the presidents since Reagan kind of ignored this, this is where we see what Trump is doing is actually really in line with. It's not radical. It's not radical. It's what we've been needing. It's what we've been asking for since the 80s, when around
And
the
that's
time you
and
and I were born.
even then, the 80s is not very far after Jimmy Carter had brought the Department of Education into existence. So I mean, just even then they were trying to get rid of it because they knew how bad it was. And then, as you mentioned, Josh, it was just kind of left to rot and fester and infect the minds of American children for 50 years. And so now it's finally done away with, and I'm sure all the liberals are reeling and seething. And the best part is just in a few short years, they'll see how much better education gets, because it will now force people to actually perform and earn the business of the parents, and also put these school boards in a position where they have to listen to the parents as opposed to ignore the parents. Because I've seen clips of school boards telling parents what they're going to do. The parents come and say, we don't want this, we don't want this. And then the school board unanimously will vote 16-0 in opposition of what the parents want. So this is all it's doing, is empowering parents and putting the decision of where their kids get education back in their hands. We got to take our bottom of the hour break here on American Matters. When we get back, hopefully we'll have that clip of Reagan for you. We're going to continue the conversation when we do. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana and Shannon Lawson. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back with American Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana, and joining me today, as always, is Shannon Lawson there in the studio. We were just been talking about the Department of Indoctrination, aka the Department of Education, being officially signed out by Donald Trump today, and it's long overdue. And we were mentioning how Ronald Reagan was very much trying to do away with it back in the 80s, and I don't know if you got that clip rolled up, but I'd love to. All right, let's get that clip played for everyone out there to
I propose, and would have already started, if your hypothesis is correct, a planned and orderly transfer back to the states and local communities of functions the federal government has usurped and which it has proven it is incapable of operating. And one of the first of those would be welfare. One of the second would be in the field of education. I would like to dissolve the $10 billion National Department of Education created by President Carter and turn schools back to the local school districts where we built the greatest public school system the world has ever seen. I think I can make a case that the decline in the quality of public education began when federal aid became federal interference. I propose...
And that was said January 14th, 1980. So not long after, it was maybe 4 or 5 years after Carter was president, something like that. And anyways, the fact of the matter is that these entities, these local school areas have been so dependent on the teat of federal aid that they have lost the accountability amongst their local communities to perform well, because they're just going to get money from the government anyways. There's no incentive for quality because they have essentially no need to compete with anybody because they have an unlimited source of funds. They'll always get their paycheck. They'll always get taken care of. They have a pension that'll come with it. Nothing to worry about there.
And Reagan said it great. You know, it was only $10 billion in 1980. My has it ballooned out of control.
Yeah.
And we've watched education scores plummet. You know, Trump likes to say best funded students with the lowest ranking scores, number 39 out of 40 countries, a top 4.
Yeah. We are doing abysmally in the rankings in the world, considering America's status as, you know, quote unquote number one country in the world, the number one GDP. You know, for some reason we have a need to import talented workers, quote unquote, with H-1B visas, which shouldn't be the case because we should have all the talent right here, homegrown in America.
Well, you know what? Bringing the smartest and the best as opposed to the crazy and criminal, I think is, it's better than what we've got right now.
I agree, but I'd rather just bring nobody in for a while. We've been taking in people forever. We don't need to do that. We can, if we just focus on ourselves. Happy to have folks come here and visit. No problem.
Oh, this is going off script a little bit, but what about the gold card, green card that costs $2 million?
I'm not a fan of it.
Not a fan. Okay.
No, I don't. I mean, I think I understand the concept of how you bring in enough people and it'll help get rid of the national debt. But honestly, if we got rid of the government bloat and the government spending, it would go away. I'm sure it might not happen as quickly, but it'll still go away. I think by putting an emphasis on getting rid of government spending and government bloat is a better plan than selling American citizenship. Because long term, it's going to do away with those problems. Because if you just sell citizenship to do away with the debt problem, it doesn't really fix the spending issue.
You're right on the money there. You got to fix. You got to fill the holes in the sieve before you can start filling it up with water. Then we'll figure out how to bring the rich, wealthy, successful, smart people filled.
They want to come here anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Well, on this point of dismantling the Department of Education, how important it is to our republic and to democracy. Charlie Kirk has had a really interesting kind of confrontation with a school teacher when we're talking about why the Department of Education isn't necessarily the best institution and what the results of it are. So if Jeff,
clip number 5 there. Let's pull that one up and play it.
You are why we should eliminate the Department of Education. Hold on.
Assertions
I got it. So,
reality.
So last question. Hold on. So you would say I'm a misinformation machine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Fine. You're a teacher. Yes. What is a woman?
What is a woman? Oh, buddy. All right. So, we define gender as a set of preferences that you have. Gender is a set of preferences we have. Woman is a social construct that we've agreed upon. Typically, we imagine womanhood as makeup or whatever. There is a difference between the word woman and being a biological female. Woman is a social construct that we use. Listen for a second. I'm telling you what it means. Woman is a social construct. We agree on these set of preferences. If I tell you that I'm a man, it's because I want you to know that I like these set of preferences. If I tell you I'm a woman, it's because I want you to know that I agree with these set of preferences.
Can men give birth?
Can men or can males? Because males can't. Listen for a second. If you listen to your bio professors, you would understand there's a difference between biology and what we think
So
about.
I want to thank you for proving a great point.
What?
You are why we should eliminate the Department of Education. Thank you very much.
Yep. Simple stuff. It's just the bastardization of language. That's how they use control. Part of the control mechanism.
But it's the redefining coming from the top down. So you've got the Department of Education that's saying, hey, we're going to redefine this word that everyone knows is male and female, man and woman. We're going to redefine that. And that's why, you have to have the centralized kind of top-down mentality of what is, George Orwell talks about in 1984. Mm-hmm. They're redefining the terms, they're redefining the language. And, to bring it back to like kind of a Christian perspective, you read in Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. He created man and woman, male and female.
Yep.
It defines those two things, man and male, woman and female. And we're trying to, the disparage between the definitions is completely manufactured, and there is an evil agenda behind it. And that ultimately is talking about destroying our republic, removing the education part of it, re-indoctrinating them so that they're voting for the wrong people. That's what it comes down to, power.
Right. Well, exactly. It's a control mechanism, and you keep the population confused and fighting amongst themselves, trying to argue over basic stuff like what is a man, what is a woman, male, female, what do these quote-unquote terms mean when we know damn well what the hell they are. We've known forever what they are, but they keep us distracted with the most just insane nonsense. And all the while, they sneak through and push their agenda, and that's the big issue.
Talking about agendas, what about if we go to video number 6?
Oh, okay.
Talking about the next step of miseducation and how that has gone through, not just defining what a man and a woman is, but what is important from a global perspective, and why we need to have things like a carbon tax, taxing people who pollute. Where does that money go to? There's a bunch of other things.
The Green New Scam.
All right.
Let's play clip 6 real quick.
Today, the Green New Scam ends as the EPA does its part to usher in the golden age of American success. I've been told the endangerment finding is considered the holy grail of the climate change religion. For me, the U.S. Constitution and the laws of this nation will be strictly interpreted and followed. Our actions will lower the cost of living by making it more affordable to purchase a car, heat your home, and operate a business. Jobs will be created, especially in the U.S. auto industry, and our nation will become stronger for it. From the campaign trail to day one and beyond, President Trump has delivered on his promise to unleash energy dominance and lower the cost of living. We at EPA will do our part to power the great American comeback. Today, the Green New Scam ends as the EPA does its part to usher in the golden age of American success. I've been told the endangerment finding is considered the holy grail of the climate change religion. For me, The U.S. Constitution and the laws of this nation will be strictly interpreted and followed. Our actions will lower the cost.
It's good to get rid of the green news scam. Where does that money go, Josh? I'll tell you where it goes. It goes to non-governmental organizations. It goes to bogus. It goes to things that our politicians that help pass this stuff invest in. We saw this back in 2009 when Obama was in office, and he passed the ethanol mandate. Well, guess what? He and his buddies invested all in ethanol manufacturing facilities. They took 60% of our corn supply here in the United States, also known as 12% of the global supply. And, well, they converted it into ethanol, which they then forced into your gas tanks, which your car's engines weren't designed for. And they made a killing off of it. It's all about enriching themselves, because there's no matter how much money you spend, you can't tax your way out of whatever happens in Mother Nature. It just doesn't happen. Now, sure, you can make emphasis on not dumping waste into the waterways or into the wilderness, and sure, you can absolutely do things to curb the types of poisonous chemicals that are exhausted out from manufacturing. But when it comes to things like carbon, well, there ain't a whole lot you can do other than plant some more trees, which we do anyways, because we have a logging industry, and part of the logging industry involves planting trees that are specifically planted to be then harvested later on. And I have a clip I'll send you, Jeff, that we can queue up for following up on this, because we're going to take our last break here on the first hour of America Matters. And when we get back, I'll show you what happens with Canada and their stupid choices and why this is a very futile effort. Anyways, I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana filling in for Eddie Floyd today with Shannon Lawson. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky, and joining me today, filling in for Eddie Floyd, is Joshua Matriciana. We got Shannon Lawson there in the studio making it happen. So we were talking about how you can't tax your way out of, well, fixing this quote-unquote global warming, climate change nonsense, because there's nothing you can do about Mother Nature, and how basically all these politicians that push this bogus are enriching themselves from the lie as they launder money out of our government and our finances into non-governmental organizations that they have affiliations to, and also private enterprises that they've invested in. So I wanted to show an example of, well, just how futile this effort is based on what Canada's efforts have been over the last 5 years. And we got that new clip I just sent over. And do you have that queued up? All right, let's show that clip. It's from Fleckus, and we love Fleckus's information, so let it roll.
Canada's effort to go green and reduce emissions. So there's the graph, and when they started the trend, you see a sharp downward spike.
Carbon tax begins April 2019, and then their greenhouse gas emissions drop pretty significantly. Chris Burnett said, according to this chart, the entire nation of Canada just spent 5 whole years fighting over a carbon tax that crippled the nation's economy to offset just 37 hours worth of China's carbon.
I like when we're smarter than everybody and we don't even know anything.
Hit yourself in the kneecap, you're Canada, everything energy more expensive, and then China just goes, more coal into the cauldron. We need a dam in Chengdu.
What do we do with all this trash? Dump it in the ocean.
Put it in the ocean and bring me the entire ocean floor from fishing vessels off of the coast of Argentina.
Canada goes, I don't know, guys. We have to upend our economy to help with climate change. So, China laughs.
Once again, China laughs while the West cripples itself.
Canada's effort to go green and reduce emissions. So there's the graph, and when they started the trend, you see a sharp downward.
All right. So, interesting, huh? Breaks their back for 5 years, cripples their economy to save 37 hours worth of quote-unquote carbon emissions that China is just going to fart out into the universe anyways because they don't care. I love how we break our back, like they mentioned, over this nonsense, and China just continues to pump out poison. And the worst part is they keep selling the populace on carbon, and not toxic industrial waste or trash and pollution being dumped into the sea or degradation of the soil or poisons in our air or poisons in our food. I mean, I know it's talked about a little bit, but why aren't those the big emphasis that we're investing our money in? Why is it that we in the West have to do all these things, but you just go over to China and they could give zero trucks about any of this? I mean, a country that literally mass produces electric vehicles to dump them in fields just so that they can get free money from globalist NGOs that are funded by the World Economic Forum, so that can show that they're green and clean when it's all bullcrap and just a cover.
Yeah, we're on a roll today. We've got a theme going on here with the corruption and bureaucrats and how people got rich by crippling the Canadian economy. You know, that wasn't an accident. There were people who got rich, and they used the excuse of the green movement to do that.
Right. And all it does is it makes life more difficult for us, because now they're talking about banning gas-powered stoves in our homes here in California, and how you can't have a gas-powered stove. If you do need to replace your gas-powered stove or your gas-powered furnace, it has to be electric. You know,
right. There was
same group that screams for diversity doesn't want you to have a diversity of energy sources.
Talking about the diversity of energy sources and how the government manufactures these crises. Jeff, I'm thinking we skip to number 11 and we talk about the engineered social event, the mass casualty event, where the government's...
Yes, where the government... the government admits that everything's just been a scam with COVID. We know that. We've known that. At least I knew that. I mean, early on, I knew about COVID before everybody. I mean, I was talking about it back in November and December of 2019. I'm going around telling folks, I'm like, yo, you have no idea what the truck is coming out of China right now. Like, I'm seeing videos of people convulsing and dropping dead. And I was like, oh, this is going global for sure. And sure enough, it did. But as soon as it did, you know what I stopped seeing, Josh? He cuts out. Well, I'll tell you what it was. I stopped seeing videos of people convulsing and dropping dead. And I started to think, and I was like, this is some bullshit. And turns out I was right. It was. And so by the time we got to the lockdown point in March of 2020, I'm going out, no mask, telling everybody it's all a lie. It's all a lie. people are looking at me like I'm nuts, because in the beginning when I told people about it, they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know anything. This is crazy. I don't know. You sound crazy. And then they're like, oh my God, it's here. Oh my God, it's here. And then I'm like, no, it's a lie. It was all a lie. So it's amazing the nonsense with that people have been tricked into. And then they took this poison injection, and their lives have been upended. So many people have literally died suddenly, have these crazy like blood clots, these white fibrous blood clots in their veins, which has never been seen by medical science prior to these quote unquote vaccines, really clot shots, injections, experimental drugs that were enforced upon people in order to keep their jobs or their livelihoods, or to go out into the public and you're going to kill your grandmother. You're going to kill somebody's grandmother if you go out there, because in bizarro world that we were thrust into, if you're taking in a quote unquote vaccine, that you're still vulnerable to people that don't take it, which is also bullshit. Because normally in a perfect world where, sanity resides, or at least in a sane world, maybe not a perfect world, you're supposed to be inoculated from said disease when you take a vaccination. And, well, everything was told, no, that's not the case. You still have to be leery of those evil, non-science believers, because today the science has changed and now you must add a second mask to your repertoire. But don't worry, in a few months' time, you must remove the masks because they don't do anything, but then go back to masking. And let's not wash our hands or cover our mouths when we cough, and don't forget, when you go into a restaurant or a business, that COVID only exists up here when you're walking to your table, not when you're actually seated at your table. And and we can't eat indoors, so we'll bring the indoors outdoors because it got cold. So we're going to make indoors outdoors, and that somehow makes it better. It was just, but people ate this crap up.
They didn't have common sense. They didn't think for themselves. They were following blindly along with what the newscasters were telling them.
Right. Good thing they had the Department of Indoctrination, education, to guide their lives up until that point.
Again, that's why they use this to control us. They want to control us with taxes, carbon taxes, with all of these overregulation,
Right. All the overregulation. It's just something that totally inhibits people's ability to create and think for themselves. It sets you in this really tight group, this tight frame of what you must operate within. And if you choose not to, you're punished. Controlling the way you operate, controlling the way you think, limiting the ability to create for yourself. This is all by design.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to play that clip?
Which clip?
You don't have that clip? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, it basically, you said the exact same thing as that what was going to be in that video.
I don't even know what video it is.
Okay.
So, anyways, yeah, look, everything that they've been doing forever is about control. And right now, we as Americans have the opportunity to take back control for ourselves. Donald Trump is helping us achieve that, but it's up to we, the people, to go and seize it for ourselves. So by getting involved in local politics, by getting involved in school boards, by just, paying attention to what the hell's going on politically in the world around you and not ignoring things because it's taboo to discuss politics with friends and family or in public. Everything that happens from the government in a governmental level impacts your daily life, whether it's the cost of food, the cost of living, the cost of gas, what your options are, what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to have, what you can say, even, because now I'm even all this stuff now they're pushing. Don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of good things and there's a lot of things that I'm not so fond of. I mean, look, you shouldn't say hateful and hurtful things because you probably get your ass kicked for it. But making it illegal to discuss topics like that and putting them under hate speech and then having penalties, legal penalties follow you with that is also a problem as well. We can't limit free speech, and we shouldn't limit gun ownership as well. Any take on any of that, Josh?
Buddy, you say it always like so perfect. We, you're right. We can't limit our free speech. When we're sitting around the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas dinner, these topics that are supposedly so taboo, what they do is they divide the families. And again, it's divide and conquer mentality. You've got some people that listen to one media outlet. You've got other people who go out and do research for themselves, and then you have this clash. And the clash is a moral clash. That's the weird thing about it. It's not about facts. It's not about common sense. They have to take it out of that realm because it's not common sense. It's deception. And so you have to use the different ground. The different ground is, oh, well, it's more moral to buy an electric car. Gas cars are ruining the environment for our children and our grandchildren. So you have to buy an electric car. But then what happened to all those people? They're like, oh, and because he's a Nazi.
Well, they always defer to the term Nazi, which is so ridiculous because it's not the case. They're actually the Nazis by limiting their speech and shutting them down. But unfortunately, we are out of time here on the first hour of America Matters. Don't worry, you've got a whole nother hour coming at you. We'll be back in about 7 minutes, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Josh for being with us here, and as well as Shanwell. Stay tuned, folks. This has been America Matters. We got another episode coming up right now. All right, folks, you certainly know what that theme song means by now. That's right. It's time for another episode of America Matters. It's Wednesday, March 26th. We're in hour number 2 here today on America Matters. It's open mic. We always love to hear from you. Get involved in today's show if you can. But I want to give a big shout out, hello, and welcome. And thank you to everybody who stayed with us through the first hour there on 93.7 KPGF as well as AM 1060. And everybody who's jumping in now for the second hour, welcome to America Matters. And thank you to everybody out there who makes it possible for us to be on the air on so many stations across the country. And that's the Answer Network, Salem Network, Radio for America, the Kevin Jackson Network, and AUN Television, and everybody out there watching on anywhere of our streaming platforms around the World Wide Webs, be it Facebook, be it LinkedIn, be it YouTube, be it Twitch, be it Rumble, whatever. We're out there. We're bringing the truth to you. That's the power. And with that, I've got Josh Matriciano with us, filling in for Eddie Floyd today. We got Shannon Lawson in the studio. That's what's going on. And I wanted to start it off the second hour talking about the 370 arrests that took place in Boston between March 18th and March 23rd of this year. The U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, a.k.a. ICE, baby, in partnership with the FBI and the, which I don't really care for, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, launched a major operation targeting violent criminal offenders, transnational gangs, and foreign fugitives. Among the 370 arrests were 205 serious criminal conviction charges, 6 foreign fugitives, including suspects linked to murder, money laundering, and organized crime, and members of the dangerous gangs like MS-13, and even worse, child predators.
Right. I mean, this wasn't just about immigration or immigration status. I mean, this is about public safety.
Absolutely. That's what all this is about. That's why we elected Trump, because we don't have secure borders. It's like not having doors on your house. Any insert expletive there could come into the house. Many of these suspects arrested had previously been released by local law enforcement due to state laws that restrict cooperation with ICE detainers, California being one of them. This hands-off approach puts communities at risk, and ICE's operation, on the other hand, shows what's possible when enforcement is prioritized. What a concept, right? You enforce the law, you get rid of the dangerous people, all of a sudden your communities are safer, your streets are safer, there's less crime. You didn't even have to change statistics to prove it. You didn't have to separate out migrant crime versus regular crime, right? Because it makes a difference whether you're here illegally or not. Crime is crime, right? Anyways, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who's a total libtard, was called to testify to Congress earlier this month about the city's approach to immigration. And God, she said, well, we don't check citizenship when we're talking with people. That's not important to us. She sucks. Governor Maura Healey later responded to her to the operation with a statement that Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state, and emphasized that the local and federal law enforcements do regularly collaborate.
No, so that sounds like two different things. Which one is it?
Right? I love when people are all on the same sheet of music. But law enforcement analyst Ed Davis pointed out that Massachusetts has thousands of active warrants, and it's a very small state, by the way. So that's an extreme saturation of warrants. This operation proves that with the right tools and political will, that's probably the most important component there, agencies can identify, track, and remove dangerous individuals, even if they're hiding behind loopholes in local policy. So this isn't just about immigration. It's, like I said before, it's about safety. It's always about accountability, and it's certainly about restoring the faith in the rule of law.
Yeah. When we talk about immigration, it's easy to get lost in the propaganda. It's easy to get lost in the headlines. They're sending all these messages, and we're missing the point a lot of times.
We always seem to be that way. This operation is a reminder that enforcement matters and communities deserve the protection from the violence, no matter where the threat comes from. I mean, Shanama, what are you experiencing there in Reno, brother?
It's a nightmare. Reno's the same way. I've got friends on the Reno PD. They're running ragged. They can't go to normal calls. It's got to all be filed by computer. It's just ridiculous, Leo.
Yeah, with all the increase in crime and the understaffing there, especially post defund the police nonsense,
right?
It's hard for the police to actually do their job, especially when the cops are already handcuffed, and how they can go and handle and detain people that they suspect of criminality, right? Because if they go and stop somebody that's a different skin color than they are, oh, that's racial profiling, right?
Right. And they're running scared. The cops are running scared. They don't want to stop people like that. You don't know who's going to be shooting you now. There's no respect for the cops out there.
Oh, and that's, again, something that's been indoctrinated into folks through mainstream media and social engineering through music.
Yep. I did figure this thing out. I've got you streaming on StreamYard again. Greg Meekin just checked in, and our regular people are starting to come back.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have everybody.
Yeah, I figured this all out.
I'm so glad everybody can be there joining us. We just moved over to a new platform to help push this to even more platforms, have more really cool controls, have things queued up, just up the quality of the show for everybody, get better quality stream, from our cameras out there to you guys, so you can see more of the blemishes and the imperfections in my face.
And Josh's, not you.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that you guys have a nice, crisp, clean picture, crisp, clean audio, and just a higher quality program here. So bear with us while we work these kinks out.
Yeah.
But I appreciate everybody stomaching it and sticking through it. We're still coming out there through the radio. Shannon makes that happen for us. I'm very grateful for him to be. We're going to take our first break here on the second hour of America Matters. When we get back, we've got a lot more to discuss. We're going to talk about the death penalty, what's going on here in California and Los Angeles. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana filling in for Eddie Floyd, and Shannon Lawson. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana filling in for Eddie Floyd today, and we got Shannon Lawson there in the studio in Reno. And, well, wanted to move on and talk about what's going on with the death penalty here in California, more specifically, what has happened with Los Angeles. So, the brand new district attorney, Nathan Hochman, has officially reinstated the ability for prosecutors to seek the death penalty in the most extreme criminal cases. Nathan Hochman is the new DA for Los Angeles County, replacing that horrible piece of crap, George Gascon, a Soros plant, like many district attorneys around the country that were campaigns were funded by George Soros and all the nefarious entities that are tied to them and help control and push their narrative of just and having high crime and chaos everywhere.
Yeah, it's a big shift for California.
Also, on Ford here, he's one of those Soros guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of these folks that have been funded by George Soros, and also the secretaries of states in most states have been funded by George Soros. There's a lot of that.
Compromised.
Oh yeah. So prosecutors are now permitted, but not required, but permitted to seek the death penalty in what he called exceedingly rare and most egregious cases. California currently has a moratorium on it, but so if they get if they get sentenced to death, they're just going to sit on expensive death row. But it's a good start. I don't like having them sit on very fancy, expensive death row because they're not getting executed in California because of the moratorium. But it's a start. It's a start, to say the least, right?
Absolutely.
So, now,
until it's your family or your kids, you're against it, right?
Right. Well, everybody's against it until something horrific happens, right? Like their children get like raped and murdered in front of their family or something like that, and then it's like, oh, now you want to kill that guy?
Right.
It's always not my problem until it affects you, right? But that's how people, unfortunately, nowadays feel, especially here in America. It's like, well, if it doesn't directly affect me, it's not my problem. Which you need to start. And the same folks that talk about empathy and caring about others, it's such a crazy concept, right? It's talking out two sides of your mouth, right?
Exactly.
So,
when they're all empathetic and sympathetic until they want to rent a room in their house or move into their house. Then all of a sudden, no, this isn't good. This isn't cool.
Right. Yeah. No, like when they go around asking folks, would you let migrants live in your house? And they're all like, oh, well, I rent, or, oh, my place is too small. But
yeah. And here they are, and they had the migrants right in back, ready to go into their house.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. So, anyways.
Or I should say illegal aliens, not migrants.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're just illegals.
Yeah, illegals.
People that are here illegally. But, yeah, anyways, getting back to this death penalty thing here in Los Angeles. It doesn't mean that we're going to have this quote unquote Wild West form of justice. This policy is cautious and calculated, and it includes review of a special circumstances committee and opportunities for defense attorneys to present mitigating evidence and importantly consultations with the families of the murder victims.
Yeah, it's not a trigger happy return to harsh justice. It's it's a thoughtful response to a crime wave, that shocked the conscience, destroys communities.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what we're facing. I mean, feel free to elaborate on this.
I mean, I personally think that the threat of a harsh punishment kind of keeps the bad guys in line. I have an anecdote of a story, in places like Singapore. And I know, Leo, you and I have had chats with this in some Asian countries. They have corporal punishment where you will literally get caned if you spray paint or if you, spit gum on the side of the street, because spitting was a massive problem, especially in China. And people got caned, and guess what? They didn't like getting hurt.
Yeah. Singapore, if I'm not mistaken, still does that.
Yes.
But you know what? They got clean streets. It's amazing what happens when you have that. I mean, like it's like disciplining children, right? Like nobody's like busting out the belt, or hitting their kid with a switch when they act up or get out of line, right? They're just like, it's time out. We're taking the iPhone away from you. No Xbox. No, you're on time out.
That's right.
Josh, you've got what, 3 kids at home now? 4.
Yeah, three boys. They're rambunctious, but I love all of them.
Now, what happens when they get in trouble? What do you do?
Yeah, well, we live in California. Let's talk about the way I was raised, as opposed to the way that we have to raise kids in California, because we've got a blended family, so there's other parents involved that don't live in the house with us, and so they, different rules apply. I don't want CPA to get involved in this, so there is no corporal punishment in my house, but I understand how important spankings were when I was a kid, because, boy, I was a little troublemaker when I was a kid. And guess what? I did not want my mother to say, wait till your father gets home.
Those are some of the scariest words. It's almost as scary as I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah. Well, my dad was a railroader and he came home every 3 months. So every 3 months I got a terrible beating from everything added up from my mom.
Oh, man.
Hey, Josh, your mic needs to come up a little bit.
How about I just talk a little closer to it?
There you go. That? Okay. Yeah. Good.
It's a little more intimate here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like when you have this looming potential of something really negative happening to you, it kind of makes you say, maybe I shouldn't do that. It's kind of like how you should be able to protect your home and your belongings from intruders. And, if somebody comes in and decides that their life is less valuable than your television, and you kill them for it, well, that was a choice that they made. Right?
Yep. That's right.
That's one of the other things where where you talk about the infiltration of this communist ideology. I mean, the understanding of personal property is really important to our form of government. You have to own something, whether it's land, whether it's your space in your house, and you have to be able to defend it. Because if you can't defend your own ownership of something, or if you don't own anything, then you've lost control of it. That's kind of what we're seeing when it comes to corporal punishment and the laws that they put in. It's like, okay, yeah, there are some really bad, awful, abusive parents out there, but to have the government say you can do this when you're talking to your kids, you can't do this, especially when it's about gender reaffirming, propaganda that teachers are talking to their kids. There needs to be a line where the government doesn't get involved. And of course, where the government does get involved, like I think the threat of, getting killed, the death penalty, the threat of getting killed is just as important, even if it's never used.
I agree. It has to be there. But when someone does violate to a level of egregiousness where that is the proper punishment, it needs to be followed through with, because if you don't follow through with it, then it just sends out this message to everybody that it's like, yeah, that's what we say the punishment is, but that's not really what the punishment is. And so people then become less inclined to be afraid of it.
Exactly.
It's like the concept of like, don't feed the animals, because like the sign says don't feed the animals, but then there's people that clearly are feeding the animals, and then they lose their ability to be wild, and then they start becoming dependent on human handouts. Next thing you know,
they're eating humans. Or kicking them, yeah.
Or yeah, but people are getting hurt, right?
Yep.
And the animals aren't being so wild.
That's right.
So that's always an issue. But anyways, I'd like to move on to another topic here. We got 3 minutes left, but let's talk about what's going on with Cain Velasquez and his fight for justice. You guys
I like that, man. Right? Cain's a bad dude. He's like 7 foot tall.
Oh yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know, Cain Velasquez is a MMA heavyweight champion, UFC 2-time heavyweight champion, and he is just he's a beast, to say that. But in 2022, he faced some personal tragedy. So on February 28th, Velasquez became involved in a high-speed pursuit through San Jose, California. He was chasing after this guy, Harry Goulart, a man accused of inappropriate contact with his 4-year-old son at daycare. So what followed was an 11-mile chase where Kane fired multiple rounds from a 40 caliber handgun and into the vehicle carrying Goulart, his mother, and stepfather Paul Bender. Bender was struck and injured, and Velasquez was arrested shortly after.
Gosh, fast forward to March 24th, 2025. Ken Velasquez was sentenced to 5 years in prison after pleading no contest to charges, including attempted murder and felony assault.
Yeah, well, the court acknowledged nearly 3 years of time already served both in jail and under house arrest, meaning he will likely serve about 2 more years in prison.
Yeah, the MMA world, and the public, they're split. Many of the fans and fellow fighters express sympathy, calling Velasquez a father who acted out of instinct. Others, have argued that vigilante justice endangered innocent people, undermined due process. It's like the Batman element.
Right.
Well, I mean, look, pretty sure his kid got molested by that guy. So, I mean, what do you do? So, even now, the man at the center of all the initial allegations, Harry Goulart, awaits trial for felony charges scheduled for June of 2025. So, turns out the dude was touching the kid. So, I mean, it's so complicated. It's a mess, right? Like, on one hand, like, you want to be able to protect your children. I mean, yeah, probably shooting on public roads is not the smartest play, but this case is a crazy one. Justice seems unattainable. And so for Kane Velasquez, the struggle outside of the octagon wasn't driven by pride or revenge. It was a deeply personal quest for justice, fought on his own terms because, this was the most defining battle of his life. I mean, you're talking about his kid being molested by a pedo.
Yeah. And
What would you do? But what would you do?
Yeah, it's a personal choice. And there's no cure for that. So that
Well,
Goulart,
there is a cure.
Well, yeah, the bullet in the head. That's the cure. But if they let this guy go, he goes out and does it again, Leo.
Right.
Yeah. So Kane, it's a personal decision. Kane was willing to deal with what he had to deal with, even if it was life in prison or his own death.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's the difference between a man and a mouse.
That's right. Stand up.
100%. Maybe not shoot at people on the freeway, but
right. Yeah, we're not condoning that.
There are other ways to go about it, but definitely stand up and kick someone's butt for that. So, anyways, we got to take our bottom of the hour break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Josh Matriciana filling in for Eddie Floyd and Shannon Lawson. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana filling in for Eddie Floyd today. And we've got Shannon Lawson there in the studio. We're just talking about Cain Velasquez and, well, what he had to do to go after a guy who is a pedophile that abused and touched his child, which makes sense. But, anyways, I wanted to move on to another subject here. Something that's been popping up in the news a bit lately. They talk about ghost guns. Ooh, scary, spooky ghost guns, which just really mean unregistered, non-serialized firearms, which people can assemble at home in states where it's legal to not register them. But people do that in states where it is, quote unquote, illegal to not register firearms, which is, in my opinion, a violation of the Second Amendment there in the Constitution. So the U.S. Supreme Court said that it could reshape how they deal with the fastest growing gun control challenge of their time, which is ghost guns. And, well, Josh, I'll let you talk a little bit more about that.
So, yeah, what are ghost guns? Ghost guns are they're privately made firearms. They don't have serial numbers. That makes them untraceable by law enforcement, of course, because without a serial number, how would they know where it came from? But they're often assembled from kits or parts, even 3D printers you can buy online. You can put together at home. There's no background check required. There's no paperwork that's involved in this. You're just hobbyists essentially making a deadly weapon.
Yeah, but so's a steak knife.
That's right.
I'm just saying, so is a shovel. There's a lot of things out there that people, a hammer, whatever, that people own that can be.
Yeah, I've got bear spray.
Can you kill somebody with bear spray?
No, but it'll sure shut him down quick.
Yeah, you can always have a less. You can always have a less lethal option,
right?
But they're talking about trying to regulate this stuff, and this is something that I understand. There's caveats, right? Because you don't want felons and minors to own guns, right? You don't. Well, I don't know about minors not owning guns, but it's so complicated. It's a very complex issue, right? I mean, you want responsible gun ownership. You certainly don't want violent felons to possess guns, and you certainly don't want the criminally insane to possess guns.
But they're going to anyway. If they have the opportunity, they're not going to follow the laws.
That's true. And my big argument to all this gun control stuff is, well, if everybody has a gun, then
yes,
and everybody assumes that everybody has a gun, then people are less inclined to use said gun because everybody around them will turn around and then use that gun on that person that did it. But and then it gets into all sorts of situations like, well, what if the person that uses the gun was actually in the right, and then everybody kills the person that's in the right. There's all these like different like logical ways that you could go and say, well, in this scenario and that scenario. So it's hard to say. But
yep.
There certainly has been a rise in ghost guns, quote unquote ghost guns, over the years, hasn't there, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, over the past few years, there's been a dramatic rise in ghost guns. Like in 2017, law enforcement recovered around 1,700 of these weapons. I mean, you fast forward to a couple years ago, that number jumped to almost 30,000. So it's a big jump in homemade weapons, if you put it like that.
Yeah, but I mean, people are still making There's bladesmiths that are making stuff at home too. I mean, you watch that show. At least maybe some of you out there see that they make the swords and stuff. But cities like New York, which absolutely hates guns, and L.A., which isn't a very gun-friendly town, especially in a gun-friendly state, or Philly, or Baltimore, where there's extremely high violence and crime, have been sounding the alarm as these quote-unquote untraceable weapons have been showing up more and more at crime scenes. And again, it's not that the guns are untraceable. It's just, and that's that they're showing up. It's that people are just committing crime with guns that are untraceable for the point of making it easier for them to get away with said crime, even though we've got like fingerprints and cameras everywhere. So it's no surprise that it's become a favorite among people looking to skirt gun laws. So, usually repeat felons are the ones that are committing crimes with ghost guns. I mean, if you're going out there and committing a crime with a gun, you probably shouldn't be someone who has a gun in the first place because you're just a bad person. But you can't let a few bad apples spoil a bunch, right?
Right. I can go down right now to Cal Ranch and build a ghost gun right now in an hour.
That's great. You should be able to do that. So I mean, it's very complicated. How you want to say you want to protect people, but you also want to allow folks to have guns. But I'm a dangerous freedom kind of guy. Does that make sense? Josh, what's your take on it?
I hear what you're saying. We wouldn't have our freedom without the Second Amendment, which has now been established. But we wouldn't have our freedom if we didn't fight back against the tyranny of the British. And how did we fight back? It wasn't with knives and forks. It was with muskets and bullets.
That's right.
So how do you maintain that status quo of do not trample on my rights when you have the government that says all we want is all your rights? So the gun, the weapons and the ability to defend yourself, I think is the most important part that maintains our free society, our free and liberated society.
Absolutely. And Michael Syed just commented in the Second Amendment is absolute, shall not be infringed, is as clear as day.
Yep.
No doubt. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, that's exactly right. Look, the whole point of the Second Amendment is for the people to have the ability to overthrow a tyrannical government. Full stop.
Yes.
That's it. So, yeah, we should be able to have full automatic belt-fed machine guns and suppressors
and you can actually in Nevada if you got a Class C license, but it costs like $5,000. You can have fully autos here.
Yeah, you can. There's Class 3 licenses that you can get in California too. It's very, very difficult and also very, very intrusive. You sign up for it.
Yeah.
It's a very long process. It's a very expensive process. You have to renew the license every year, which is also expensive. And you also give the right to the government to basically come into your home at any time and strip your weapons, which is something I'm not a fan of.
Not me neither.
Not giving up my rights to some government. So
no way.
Anyway. That's the first step, though. If you have a tyrannical government, or you have a government walking towards those, taking the steps towards tyranny, the first thing that they're going to do is infringe upon your ability to own guns. Before that, they're going to infringe upon your ability to talk against the government. As you see people in like Europe, like Australia and the UK, who they actually serve jail time because they made a post on Facebook.
Yeah.
Now, that's the first step of the slippery slope,
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like they do that in Australia, they do that in the UK, and again, that's tied to the freedom of speech thing that I mentioned earlier. It's like, yeah, you're allowed to say hurtful and hateful things, but when you start putting framework that limits it by labeling it this is hate speech, and now you can be removed from society for it, that's the problem. But that's what we're seeing, and even countries like the UK have made threatening statements saying that if Americans post stuff like that, that they'll take them away to jail.
Let him try. We beat the bloody British 2 times. The Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. They should have learned their lesson the first time. Michael Saeed says you shouldn't need any licenses. You should be able to buy a belt-fed machine gun the same way you can buy a handgun. That is what the Second Amendment says.
Well, yeah, but less paperwork. Like, I love how I live in California, where it's like the craziest gun laws, but I can go over the imaginary line into Arizona and
Nevada, yeah,
no problem. Cash in hand. Go to like some swap meet gun show that they got set up, and I like that. You want it, brother? How much is it? $500. All right, here you go. Have a good day.
Yep.
Simple.
Swap a horse for it? Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, they will. But,
damn right.
So it's amazing. It's amazing the differences between our states and the laws, and just how some states violate the Constitution one way and violate it in others and uphold it in others. So,
yeah, it's who's in charge, Leo. Who's in charge?
Right. But we have to remember our founding fathers set up this framework, with the original 10.
Constitutional Republic, yeah.
Yeah, we should kind of maybe focus on getting back to that because it's gotten out of hand, to say the least.
Michael also says, "Oh yes, California gun laws are the worst. I meant how you buy a handgun in a state like Arizona. Ha ha, yeah, and Nevada too. We can go right in. We have to do the Brady bill. You got to pay $25 for the background check, and that's it."
Well, there you go.
And you talk about this imaginary line. We should be able to cross that imaginary line and have more freedoms or less freedoms depending on the population who live in that state decide. Like, it shouldn't be a federal ban. It shouldn't be a federal regulation. It should be up to the states. Again, like, that's why we're getting rid of the Department of Education. So the states have more power. So
yeah.
I'm against most federal regulation unless it's dealing with, other countries. That's what it's there for.
Right.
No, I get that, but when it violates our Constitution, if a state's laws violate the U.S. Constitution, that's my issue.
Right. That's wrong.
So
I guess that's when funding would stop. They'd have to be held accountable in some way.
Well, federal funding,
Yeah, federal funding.
And
we're finding out how far this federal funding is going. Look at the $400 million that they're giving to universities.
It's been doing what? Teaching kids that they don't know what a woman is?
That's right.
Forget what you know about women. You don't know.
You don't know.
It's a construct. It's a concept.
We'll tell you.
But we're going to have this long, drawn-out, nonsensical explanation that ends in a question.
Yep.
So, anyways, well, we got to take our last break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana filling in for Eddie Floyd, and we've got Shannon Lawson. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Charlie.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Matriciana today, and we've got Shannon Lawson. And we were just talking about guns and ghost guns and all our stances on that stuff. But I wanted to move on and talk about what's going on with the January 6th Patriots. And that's exactly what they are and were. Patriots that went to the Capitol and wanted to voice their opinion. And some of them were coerced into going there by absolutely FBI agents. We know that for a fact that there were FBI agents in there. The government lied and said there weren't. They lied and said that Capitol Police died at the scene. That also didn't happen. Ray Epps, where the hell's Ray Epps? What's going on with this, right? So, anyways, President Donald J. Trump has once again shown why he stands alone in the fight for real Americans. In a recent interview with Newsmax, Trump dropped a bombshell. He's not just standing by those caught up in the events of January 6th. He's considering compensating them, which is rightfully so.
Yeah. I mean, many of the people at the Capitol, they weren't violent. In fact, my stepmom and my dad were there during it, and they invited me to go. And I felt this really weird feeling not to go. So I ended up skipping it. But most of the people who were there, I mean, they were everyday patriots, teachers, veterans, parents, business owners, who felt their voices just weren't being heard in a broken election system. And they wanted to stand up and have a peaceful gathering, and then the J6 chaos ensued, as they would like to put it, frame it in the mainstream media.
I mean, I was there. I felt compelled to be there because I wanted to show my support for Trump and how I felt that this election was fraudulent, which it was. And that just having that sheer show of numbers would just show how many people of America just don't like this, and said, hey, representatives that supposedly represent us in a constitutional republic, as you're supposed to do, we got a problem. You need to look into it. That was the whole concept of us being there in mass.
Leo, you got very lucky because they gathered everybody up. You were very lucky that you didn't go to jail. I had Robert Morse, the Lego man, on the Nevada Roundup and the American Roundup 2 weeks ago. He spent 3.5 years in prison from the bastards of the J6 committee who got pardoned. So they've admitted they've done wrong. It cost my buddy, my friend, Robert Morse, 3.5 years of his life in that. And they ship him all over the country to confuse him and to break him down. They let him go and teach. He was a Army Ranger, 3 tours in Afghanistan. This guy's a hero. He moved into teaching. He left the Army, moved into teaching so he could help these poor indoctrinated kids. Well, they let him teach that whole summer before they came and arrested him. They arrested him on the final day of school to hurt him and punish him in front of the whole school. That's what those bastards are like.
Yeah. They talk about quote unquote Nazis,
yeah,
or that stereotypical version of what Hollywood portrays as a Nazi, where they come in and kick and basically arrest you and make a public scene. It's designed to embarrass and demoralize. That's the whole thing. They want to. It's all a psychological thing to break the spirit and the will of the American people.
They didn't break Robert. They wrote a book, and they actually snuck that book out. I think it's called One Final Question. I'll try to get him to get on your show, Leo.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to have her on, and I appreciate that, Shannon.
Yep.
But look, Trump described the people that protested as peacefully and patriotically, and that's exactly what the vast majority of people there did. I mean, we knew. I mean, I remember being in the crowd and being there the day before the event, and people were already talking about how we know there are Antifa people that are going to be dressing up as Trump supporters.
Right. Also, the Azov Brigade from Ukraine was there, and the Mossad was there. They already knew about the Biden thing.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little feedback here from somebody's microphone. But anyways, like I was saying, we knew that we wanted to be there to show that we were against this fraudulent election, and the fact that these folks have been incarcerated and were wrongfully so, and Trump recognizes that is a good thing, because there's the possibility of a compensation fund being discussed. And just think about that. A president who actually takes care of the people who believed in him and who showed up because they believed in their country and did something peacefully and patriotically. And let's not forget, on day one of his presidency, Trump fulfilled a bold campaign promise and issued clemency for around 1,500 J6 defendants. And he didn't forget about Ashley Babbitt either, the Air Force veteran who was fatally shot that day. And he called her a really good person and vowed to look into the case more deeply, hinting that his administration may hold Capitol law enforcement accountable for the decisions they made during the chaos, and, well, rightfully so. So Trump's plan isn't just about righting the wrongs of the past. It's about rebuilding the trust of the American justice system and protecting free speech and putting America first. Again, what a concept, right?
Yeah, nice, huh?
He's laying the foundation for a movement that doesn't back down from media pressure. It stands for real justice and real people.
That's right.
Yeah. The usual suspects here on the left, they're furious. Democrat Representative John Garamendi called the move immoral and dangerous. Again, bringing in this morality factor, because when common sense kicks in, you have to take it to the different platform of conversation. I mean, but what else is new?
Right? Just slander, slander, slander. But no, we can't do that. We're not going to stand for that. So the same people who turned a blind eye to BLM and those riots that were really destructive all around the country are the same ones who are going to lecture us on what law and order is, right? It's the pot calling the kettle black or something like that. But I mean, it's not even that we did anything bad. Like, I mean, you literally see the videos of like old couples walking through the Capitol, staying in between the velvet ropes, literally being ushered in by Capitol Police. No, but hey, those are the violent, people, not the folks that took over police stations around the country and burned them down and caused billions, tens of billions of dollars worth of damage. So Trump's plan to support and compensate these patriots it's not just bold, it's historic, and it signals a new era where forgotten Americans are finally being heard.
Yeah. How do you put a price on 3.5 years of a guy's life? There's no price in the world. I mean, that 50 million might help him, but that PTSD, 3.5 years and being moved constantly around the country.
And that gulag in D.C. was no summer camp. I mean,
and Robert said that was the worst one, Leo.
Well, they were being abused in there. I mean, D.C. is full of leftists. I mean, 93% leftist. That's what D.C. votes.
What a nightmare.
So you've got these like politically charged, Marxist indoctrinated, like blue-haired, purple-haired psychopaths with batons and authority just going to town on America First, patriot flag-waving Americans.
Hell on earth.
Literally. I mean, in an American prison, they were faced with these just godforsaken, set of circumstances that they're living in. So, anyways, that's
looks like Tony Garcia Martin found you, and I said Michael Saeed is here with us, so this is working.
All right, beautiful. I'm glad that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So I just got one more topic I want to cover while we got another 3 minutes and 25 seconds left of the show. I wanted to talk about how the Atlantic releases U.S. military plans. So on March 15th of this year, the Atlantic, sad excuse for toilet paper, published a report revealing that Jeffrey Goldberg, the magazine's editor-in-chief, was inadvertently added to a Signal group chat involving senior officials in the Trump administration. And this group included Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Mike Walls, and Vice President J.D. Vance. The group was coordinating final details for a planned airstrike on Houthi positions in Yemen. Goldberg, who had been mistakenly added to the chat, received a series of messages detailing the timing, assets involved, and readiness of the strike. He later published the information, and the administration has confirmed that Goldberg's inclusion in the chat was a mistake, but has maintained that no classified intelligence was compromised.
What an anti-patriot this Goldberg is. He accidentally got included and then right away runs out and publishes this. That's a national security problem right there.
Yeah, the White House press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, she emphasized that the operation proceeded as planned and no personnel or mission security were jeopardized in it. But who added him? Who added this Atlantic journalist to the group chat?
Right.
All right.
That's the big question.
Somebody, they can figure that one out. But I guess I'm surprised that they're using Signal. Why are they using? Well, I guess they are the government, And even though Signal supposedly right, because Signal is supposedly compromised, right? Like NSA,
Yeah.
well, NSA basically has the keys to everything, which is
The
another.
main guy from Signal's is on trial.
Yeah. It's kind of like what we were talking about yesterday, Leo. When when we were talking about when the voter, that little box popped up on the screen, and you saw, oh, somebody who's not supposed to be here is here. Well, it just goes into the same kind of thing. Like, who is the one who let that guy in the door?
That's right.
Right. Well, the gatekeepers, of course, and so no. Now, I'm sure some people out there will be saying, "Oh, this is Trump's 4D chess plan to root out corruption in his own administration."
So be it.
Trump is not playing 4D chess. I hate to break it to you.
And Elon Musk is very clever at finding leakers.
Yeah, he's good. He's definitely good for some things, but he still must be watched very closely.
Very closely.
Short leash with that one.
Short leash. He's a great guy.
I mean, look, I like what he's doing right now, but I don't love all the things he's done in the past. So that's my take on that. I can always comment more on that, but we are pretty much out of time here on America Matters. I'm so glad you guys joined us today. Again, sorry for any of the hiccups or technical issues while we have been migrating over to the new streaming platform thing that we're using called EV Mux. And I appreciate you guys bearing with us through all that and getting involved in today's show. Tony Garcia Martin, thank you. Michael Sahi, thank you. And everybody else out there that commented, we love hearing from you. Please stay involved, and we will see all of you. Well, I actually won't see you guys tomorrow, but I got to go to San Diego. But we will have a show playing for you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.